We'll pick up the story in verse 20. When he came near the den, now this is King Darius, he calls out to Daniel. Now listen to this testimony from a pagan king. Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continuously, been able to rescue you from the lions? Wow, what a testimony. Will others be able to say similar things about you, about your continuing serving God? But our third point really wasn't about Daniel so much as it was about remaining connected with other believers. Something that Brother Cyril Ontai preached about in February. So let's return to Daniel and his three friends. Back in Daniel chapter 2, remember when Daniel was promoted to be prime minister? Verse 49 tells us that when Daniel is promoted by King Nebuchadnezzar, he does something for his three friends. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah as administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained in the royal court. And when Daniel's going through these trials, what about Daniel's friends? This Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Well, they were right there with him. We know that they were with him when they went through that diet trial, and they shared in that victory. We know that he was with them in the courts, sharing and encouraging Daniel, and being encouraged by Daniel. But perhaps you know these three much better by their Babylonian names. They are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their continued story is in Daniel chapter 3. A similar plot is used against them in worshiping a golden idol. And their response to King Nebuchadnezzar is found in verses 16 to 19. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set for us." Now that's faith, something I preached about before. But it's also a victorious attitude in the face of death. And what's more, there's evidence of their connection with God. They were strengthened by their previous victories, those with Daniel, and they were encouraged by Daniel, their Christian brother. And as we're told in the Bible, these three were thrown into the furnace, but God joined them in the furnace. And through all of this, God was glorified. This brings me to our last point. We are to live powerful, victorious lives through Christ. Please read with me 1 Corinthians 15:57. Ready? Begin. But thanks be to God, he gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. These two stories that I shared with you, these 5 men, they could have viewed the world and their circumstance as victims. They hadn't done anything to be sold or carried off into slavery. Last year, Pastor Ray, he preached on Job and his troubles. He too hadn't done anything. He could have viewed the world as a victim. Just like us, none of these men could control their circumstance. But all of them controlled their attitude, and they maintained their connection with God. And through that, they were all victorious. So what about you? What about me? The economy's bad. For many of us, our health is failing. The Lord knows what trials and what troubles our lives are in today. But Paul writes to Timothy in 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. For God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, of love, and of self-discipline. Brothers and sisters, we cannot control all that happens in our lives, but we can control the way that we look at these events and the way that we handle them. Be victorious, not a victim. Our text today should be our motto. In Philippians it tells us we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. In the sermon flyer, there are some hopeful verses. I encourage you to read them, to store them up in your heart, in your mind. Then, when trouble comes, you can call upon them and be victorious in the face of adversity. You know, in 2 weeks, we're going to celebrate the greatest victory there ever was. But before there was a resurrected Christ, there was a small, intimate meeting in an upper room where Jesus was speaking with, at this time, the 11 disciples, telling them of things that were about to occur and troubles that they were going to have. One of those verses that I've listed for you as a resource is the last thing Jesus said to these disciples before they left that upper room, before they went to Gethsemane, and before Christ was betrayed. It's found in John 16, verse 33. I have told you these things so that you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. So brothers and sisters, my friends, if you have a relationship with Jesus, who gives you the power, live victoriously. And if you don't know him, do that today so that you might tap into the power, that you may not be a victim, but be more than a conqueror through Christ. God bless you.